Welcome to Teaching Orchestra. In this video, I'm going to take an orchestra director's approach to teaching rhythm through Bowings. If you have a background as a woodwind player, a vocalist, a brass player, or a percussionist, or even a guitarist, and look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with any of that. Just because you don't play first violin in a London Symphony doesn't mean you can't be a top-flight orchestra teacher. But I would like you to empathize with your strings, especially when they're learning rhythm. Even with the bigger orchestras, there's like the stereotype, and I should probably not air this and edit this out, but there's the stereotype that string players struggle with the rhythm. And yeah, it's because it's hard to play rhythm accurately as a string player because it takes some planning. Because the bow is dynamic, it's going to respond differently in this part of the bow than it is in this part of the bow. So in my teaching companion, which is available on teachingorchestra.com, I have all of these rhythms need to play great times at Comin, and there's 9 of them, right? That's all you gotta know are these 9 rhythms. And your students can count and clap and do all these tricks to learn the rhythms, and that's great, but when they put the bow on the string, sometimes they struggle because it's not just about internalizing the rhythm, it's about externalizing it. It's about putting it to the bow and getting your bow to respond with your neighbor's bow. Fortunately, most of these bowings are symmetrical except for this one. This one's the hardest one because you've got the down bow and then up bow, down bow, up bow. This one's going to be the trickiest, but the other ones are going to be pretty easy to do. So when your students play through these rhythmic exercises or you do this by rote, you got to think, where are we going to be in the bow? Where are we going to be for whole notes? Well, probably at the frog and go to the tip, and then from the tip back to the frog. All right, where are we going to be for half notes? We could do the same thing, or we could start in the middle and go to the tip, and then go from the tip back to the middle. And we could do the opposite, right? We could do the same exercise and start from the frog and go to the middle, and then from the middle back to the frog. So we could learn how to use both halves of the bow. Quarter notes are probably going to be played in the lower middle, so get them used to that. And then we have these combined rhythms. And if we do these split bowing exercises, it's going to help us with number 4 because we have a long bow, down, and then up, down. Up is going to be in the opposite part of the bow, right? So that's why I like to teach that technique here. This is just backwards of this rhythm, and then this is the trickiest rhythm. We got to make some decisions here about how we want to handle it. Do we want to play a really quick up bow, or do we want to play a slower down bow? That's for you to decide. If your orchestra is into phrasing, you don't want to crush that quarter note here. Remember that there's more tension at the frog than there is at the balance point. A lot more. And when they start to add weight to their bow to articulate, how's the bow going to respond? So when you do these rhythms and you notice that your cello and bass section are at the frog and you notice that your violins and violas are in the upper half, do you think the bows are going to respond the same way? And do you think that's going to have any influence on their rhythm? Do you think maybe that's why there's the stereotype? Because the bow has an effect on the rhythm. So don't let your orchestra be a meme, okay? Make sure they're all playing the same part of the bow, and then they're going to be able to play rhythms accurately. And fundamentally, that's more important than the rhythm itself. It's the bow placement. That's the fundamental. So if you're into accurate rhythms moving forward, we don't just want to teach these rhythms. We want to teach standardized bow placement. So they can play great times at Comin, but if they have the fundamentals, they can translate that into any piece of music. Great Times at Comin is rated at 152 to 160 beats per minute. And by the way, I usually take this in 2, but that's a completely different video. But you don't have to start them off at 152. You can slow it down, make it easy for them, make sure they do it right, and please make sure they're all in the same part of the bow together as an ensemble. When we're teaching rhythm to beginning strings, we tend to go from little to big because little, there's less moving parts. Big gets more complicated, all right? But in the teaching companion, we do the opposite. We go from big to little because it's assumed that your students have a lot of this stuff worked out already with the open and close and the good bow hands and stuff. But if that's not the case, you got to go back to fundamentals and back to rudiments and make sure that they have all this stuff taken care of. Now, once they're comfortable with these on the open Ds, then you can complicate things a bit. You can take this back to the finger patterns and substitute the whole notes for the rhythm. So, okay, instead of whole note A, we're going to do rhythm 4. So we're going to do the half quarter, quarter for A, and then half quarter, quarter for B, etc., all the way up and all the way down. Make sure and listen to make sure your orchestra is in tune. When you're isolating the left hand, you're doing this with fermatas, they match pitch, but when they're counting and they're doing rhythms, sometimes the left hand gets a little shady. So make sure that you're listening, you're having your students match. If that gets out of hand, go back to the fermatas, get it in tune, make sure that they can marry the left-hand technique with the right-hand technique. Now, the teaching companion only has the D string and the A string major patterns, or 2-3 patterns if that's what you say. It doesn't cover the G string because the G string would have a C sharp just using the diatonic pitches, but fortunately, in great times of Comin, there are no C sharps on the G string, so we don't have to worry about that, but you can teach it to them if you want to. It's up to you. So if you go to the website and you spend your $10, or hopefully your school district's $10, and by the way, if you need to pay for this out of pocket, don't. I'll just send it to you for free if your school district won't cover you. Anyway, if you want to get the lifetime value and get your money's worth, please standardize your bow placement. It's going to pay off for the rest of your students' playing careers. They can apply this to different concert music, they can apply this to their solos, they can apply this to their etudes, and it's gonna pay off. So in my next video, I'm gonna discuss the use of percussion, which is an unusual feature for this channel. I usually focus on string pedagogy, but hey, come along that ride with me, and I hope to see you then.